first and foremost, I want to thank you so much for taking out your time to stop by to come on the platform. This is really an honor. I appreciate the work that you've been doing, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you, Taye. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Definitely, definitely. For the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know who you are, where you from, and definitely what do you do?
Okay, Taye. So my name is Irving Wladawsky-Berger. Uh, Let me start at the beginning. I was born in Cuba a long time ago. I came from Cuba to the US in 1960 when I was 15 years old, finished high school, went to university here, University of Chicago, and then 1970 went to work at IBM, at IBM Research as a computer scientist. I had a long career in IBM, was involved very much on a variety of technologies, and later on, I also managed a number of initiatives at IBM. For example, in the 1990s, I led IBM's parallel supercomputing strategy. I led IBM's internet strategy, Linux and open source. I retired from IBM in 2007 and consulted for a few companies, but I've been involved with MIT as a research affiliate since 2005. And the other thing I'll mention is that I've been writing a weekly blog primarily on technology and business strategies, economic strategies since then. So that's a short overview of my career.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. That's inspiring. Now I have to ask you this: by working with IBM in the '70s, what changes have you seen over the years? Because it's such I guess a technological staple. We have
Yeah,
iPhones and smartphones now, but obviously they didn't have those things back then.
yeah. Let me tell you, Taye, I was thinking about this the other day. In my life, I have personally gone through three major technological revolutions. Let me tell you what I mean. So, in the summer of 1962, I was in Chicago, the south side of Chicago, Hyde Park, and I was about to enter college, and I wanted a job in the research labs because I knew I wanted to go into math and science in general. And somebody said, they are starting this new um, research lab called the Computation Center. Why don't you go and see if they will give you a summer job? At the time, I was working in the library. And so I went there. I met the director, Clemens Rotan. We talked for a while. And he asked me, do you know anything about computers? Remember, in 1962, computers were just really starting. So I said, no, I don't know anything, but I wanted to learn more. He said, okay, you're hired. And so I started working with computers in 1962. I did my PhD thesis and all that, doing a lot of stuff with computers. And then when I joined IBM in 1970, I joined as a computer scientist. So that's the first technology I've lived through. The second one is the good old internet. So in the 1990s, as you know, the internet started hitting. IBM decided that, boy, we want to get much more involved with the internet. And I was asked to organize IBM's internet strategy and lead IBM's internet division, which I did starting in 1995. And that's my second major technology revolution that I've been involved in. And then more recently, I've been fascinated with artificial intelligence, where it's going, has it been overhyped, what people say can you believe and what you can you not believe. So that third revolution is just starting. I think of it, it's like a young kid, and everybody thinks, oh, there goes the next Lionel Messi, if you know what I mean. And I say, he's a young kid, give him time to grow up, and we'll see whether he becomes Messi or something happens. So I have huge uh, hopes for AI, but we're in the early stages. So I've been blessed with being able to see center stage the evolution of these major technology revolutions.
Wow, that definitely sounds exciting. I appreciate you sharing that. Now you had mentioned MIT. Now, are you an actual professor? Do you have courses, or what exactly do you do?
No, I'm not full time. I'm a research affiliate. I've been involved in a variety of activities. I'm involved in some joint projects with people at MIT. Right now, I am supervising and mentoring a group of students at the Sloan School of Management, working on a problem in machine learning and so on to see how to help a global supply chain company take advantage of technology better. So, but I'm not full time. I'm not there as often as I would like, especially since COVID. I live in Connecticut, so Boston is about, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 hours away. But I'm very involved, and I really like it. It's a great school.
Yeah, yeah, definitely recognized globally. Now I can ask you about this. I seen this in your
But Taye, let
profile.
me tell you what I really like. The fact that it's a good school is like, really tell me something else. But the people are very nice. And, sometimes people are great and you don't want to have a beer with them. But my experience has been the people are very nice, they're very curious, they're being very welcoming, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now I wanted to ask you about this. I had saw this in your profile. You actually work with the President's Information Technology Advisory Committee. What
Yeah.
exactly is that, and what was your role?
Well, in 1997 or thereabouts, the Clinton administration, President Clinton, and Al Gore, who was his vice president, set up a President Information Technology Advisory Committee to help advise the administration on what it should do when it came to information technologies. It was a really exciting time because the internet was just coming along. It was just being developed. And so we formed this committee, and there were 12 people from academia, from universities, and 12 people from the private sector, from business. And I was there as one of the people from business. And, we got together every few months or not. We we did studies on different topics. We wrote reports and we went recommendations. And I was a member of, we called it PTAC, President's IT Advisory Committee, for 4 years, two of them as a member. And then the last two, I was the co-chair from the business side. My second co-chair was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, Raj Reddy, and it was a very nice time. And one of the main things that we did, we wrote a number of reports, but one of the main ones was a major recommendation to the administration to support the growth of the internet. We felt that the internet was going to be a really huge deal and it would really be a transformative technology. And we encourage administration to increase the research funding through the National Science Foundations, and they did that. They really did that. They accepted our recommendations, and the rest is history. I mean, here we are talking to each other across 8 time zones over the internet, and we don't think any of it. This feels like, okay, so it's just one more technology. In the 90s, it felt like magic, to be honest.
Wow, that's really amazing. Because, like you say, when I was in elementary school, we may have had one computer. It was in the library. We would go there, and we had the floppy disk. And then it
Yes,
kind of came when we had the AOL. We had the CD and the dial up. It just gradually kept growing and growing.
yeah,
And like you say, we're
and
now.
here we are. And one of the things I am particularly happy with the internet is that, for example, we worried about this in PTAC, that we worried about a digital divide. That is, that um, people with more money and more education could afford to buy a laptop or a personal computer. They could afford an internet connection and they could use it and take advantage of it. But people with less economic means wouldn't be able to do that. And given the role we expected the internet to play, they would be falling behind. That's why we called it a digital divide. But, over the years, uh, fairly inexpensive smartphones have come along. Billions of people now use smartphones. I'm sure, I mean, you've traveled in many countries, and I'm sure just about everybody you meet probably has some kind of a smartphone. And wireless technologies came along. So you have billions of people on the internet with smartphones. And that's been fantastic. And this is very important, that for a technology to really have an impact on economies and societies around the world, it has to be universally available to everybody. Because if only a small segment can use it, then yeah, it's a great technology, but it's not available to everybody. And the internet has really uh, been wonderful, and the devices that have come along with it and so on, because I think most of the world is able to use it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of my favorite things I enjoy about the internet. By me, being a world traveler, I meet people and I can keep in contact with them. I can communicate with them. I can see them, talk to them. I have family back home, so I won't be
Yeah,
here for the holidays, but I can, they can put the video on the screen and I can
Right.
see everyone and hear everyone. That's so amazing.
So you can see them having turkey back
Right.
home.
Definitely, definitely. Okay. Now I wanted to ask you about some of your articles. You do a blog. If you
Mhm.
could just talk about what inspired you to start the blog, and then I'll ask you about a few articles in particular.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said at the end.
Oh, okay. If you could just talk about, what the blog is about, when you
Well,
started it, what
yeah,
inspired you.
yeah. To be honest, I started the blog. This is very interesting because around 2005, social media was just getting going. And, IBM wanted to start having more of a social media presence. And some people at IBM came to me and they said, Irving, we want to be involved with social media, but it doesn't look good if no IBM executive is involved in it. And we noticed that you write your emails in a coherent manner. You think through what you write. So we want you to get involved in social media and start writing a blog. And I said, are you kidding? You want me to do that? What do I know about writing a blog? I said, oh, just do it. One of our members of the communications group will help you edit your blog, but you'll write it. And I started doing it. And uh, what I found out is that over time, I really enjoyed it. I couldn't have predicted that I would enjoy writing the blog, but the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And especially once I retire from my full time job at IBM, I found that writing a blog was a very good way for me to keep up with what's happening in the world of technology, in the world of research, in the world of business. And it's up to me. I mean, I can write about anything I want to. And the way I do it usually is I will read articles on the topic, whether it is the future of work, lots of artificial intelligence, um, the evolution of digital payments, and on and on and on. So I'll read some articles and then I'll try to write, let's say, no longer than 1,500 word blog on what I learned in the article, and then try to communicate it in the best way to I can. And Taye, what I found is that when you read something, what you read is sort of in the surface of your brain. But boy, when you want to write about what you read and put it in context, all of a sudden that information has to dig deeper into your brain because now your brain has to massage it. It has to decide, gee, how do I make a story of it? How do I make it interesting? How do I explain a concept that took me a while to understand in ways that make it clearer to other people? And so that goes straight into your brain. So uh, I write, in fact, I just read, somebody sent me this article that said, I write to know what I think, is what it said. In other words, you don't know what you're thinking until you want to start writing. And I said, that seems so right. But let me add, I write to learn new topics, to make sure that I understand them. And it's a very interesting, I mean, this area of what goes into your brain and so on, I've become much more interested in that since artificial intelligence. Because, I mean, after all, in artificial intelligence, we talk about intelligence, we talk about the brain. People write articles about, gee, maybe AI will replace our brains and they will replace thinking. And what's the role of humans then? By the way, the answer is, in my mind, and I've been reading quite a bit about it, there's a gigantic difference between AI, which is an incredibly exciting technology, but it's a machine, and people and the human brain, in which, like you and I are now talking, we are, in fact, when humans communicate, I learned this by reading articles from linguists, professors of linguistics, that when you and I are talking to each other now, it's that our brains are communicating with each other. That in order for me to understand what you're asking me, I have to put myself in your shoes and I have to say, gee, I wonder what Taye is asking me, and I understand it, and then I can answer you. And the way then you understand what I told you is because you are putting yourself in my shoes. And then it's a very interesting brain-to-brain communication. By the way, I'm not making this up, Taye. I learned this concept of, the difference between, let's say, syntax, just the words and the grammar and so on, which a machine can do very nicely. That's what large language models do. But the poor large language model or AI doesn't understand what I said. It can do incredible stuff with it, but if you said, does it understand it? The answer is, the concept of understanding is a human concept. It's not a machine concept. And it's very different than from the way we communicate. And the more you know a person, the easier it is to communicate with it, because it's like your brains are much more in tune with each other, and it facilitates the communication. So this is part of what's nice about my blogs, is that I've never was that involved with linguistics, with neuroscience, with cognitive science. But because of AI, I got curious about it. And then I've been learning all this interesting stuff that before I didn't know. And it's not that I'm an expert linguist or cognitive scientist, but now I know a little bit more than I did a few years ago.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate you taking out the time to break that down. And I'm sure the viewers can really, utilize that process, like you say, not only reading it, but actually writing about it, putting it back out there to get a better understanding of, what you just consumed.
Yeah, or at least discuss it with a colleague, discuss it with a friend, because when you are discussing it with a friend or colleague, you have to explain what you mean. So you're forcing your brain to say, what am I trying to tell Taye? And and remember, a large language model is just statistically predicting the next word, analyzing the syntax. I'm not putting it down. It's a machine. So it's an incredible accomplishment for a machine. But when humans communicate and talk with each other, eh, we put extra effort to make sure that we are understood. And if for some reason we think, gee, Taye, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear enough, we go back and we explain it. So human communications is very, very different. And if anybody asks me, so do you think AI will replace humans? The answer is, oh, give me a break.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely been some concern of some people. Now I can ask you about an article that you have is will AI devour software engineering? If you could speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, that was a very interesting article by a colleague, Mary Shaw, that she was a member of PTAC. She's a professor at Carnegie Mellon. And a number of people have written articles that one of the things AI is very good is helping people in programming. You know, if you're trying to program something, then you can ask AI for help and it can help you start it. You can say, I'm trying to do this, and AI can look it up in its huge library of information. Remember, AI knows only what it's been trained on, but it's been trained on so much information that somewhere there it's a lot about programming. And so people wrote articles that maybe programming is no longer a good career because it's going to be automated by AI. And this friend of mine, Mary, wrote a really good paper with a colleague of hers, a younger colleague at CMU, Carnegie Mellon. And what she explained is that people didn't understand the difference between programming, which is a very specific job, and the whole field of software engineering. And in the whole field of software engineering, first you have to decide what are you going to write about? What are you going to program? And then you have to decide how do you link whatever new software you want to write to existing software. And then you have to decide how do you test it? How do you bring it out? And so when people wrote that AI will get rid of programming, what she said is they didn't understand the scope of software engineering, that how much bigger software engineering is than programming, which is a big part of it, but only a part, not the whole thing. And, and when you get into the whole software engineering, the onus on the software professional is to think about what they want to develop, how they want to develop. They want to craft it, and then and only then can they start getting involved in programming. And when it comes to programming, AI is clearly an incredibly good tool to help them do it better. This is, to use a very simplistic analogy, this would be as if in, I don't know, the 1980s, when personal computers and word processing came along, somebody wrote that, you know, these new word processing tools are going to take over writing for people. And you would say, wait a second, the word processing is a much better tool than a typewriter. Taya, you're probably too young to remember what a typewriter was, but I'm sure you've seen pictures of them. But it's up to the writer to decide what they want to write about, and then they can use the word processor as a tool to help them be more efficient. They can correct errors easily. Before you had word processing. If you had to correct an error, you use some special white ink or something, and then you type over. It was a pain in the ass to use a typewriter compared to word processing, but the writer is in charge. And similarly, the software engineer is in charge, and AI is a fantastic tool to help him or her. So that's the point that I learned from Mary, and then I wrote about it.
Okay, okay, wow. Now I can ask you, have you thought about writing a book, based on any of your articles or research or work?
You know, people have said that to me. The a book, you have to spend quite a bit of time on a subject. What I write about, what I like about my blog is that it's very eclectic. I can write about whatever I want. If I see a topic that, like I was mentioning, linguistics or cognitive science, I'm not going to write a book about that because I don't know enough, but I can write a blog. And, and so I decided that being able to, to learn about lots of topics was more important to me than being able to go deep into one. And that's why I've continued to do that, to write a blog and move around, and one day about AI, another day about the future of work, another day about security of the internet, and so on.
Okay, okay. I definitely appreciate you stopping by. It's been a great episode, a phenomenal episode. A lot of the information you shared, I'm still processing it. But like I say, it's an honor, and I do appreciate the work that you have done. And I definitely look forward to the work that you have coming in the future as well.
Thank you, Tai. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it was so nice to get your invitation. Make me feel very good. Say, oh my God, Tai invited me to his podcast. I must be doing something right. And here we are.
Definitely, definitely.